Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome back to SafeerTV. We are broadcasting live from the holy city of Karbala. This evening we've been talking about the holy personality of Ali al-Akbar, the son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and trying to draw lessons from his life. Before the break we were talking about raising children and how we can raise children so that they can be like Ali al-Akbar. And we're saying that it's up to the parents to take their children to majalis, to bring them to ziyarah. But before we go back into the discussion, just to remind viewers that if they want to send their salams to Imam Hussein alayhi salam or Hazrat Abbas, they can do so by texting or calling the number below. So talking about Ali al-Akbar and how to have children that are like him, what are other things that parents can do with their children to help them have the taqwa, have the iman like Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam?
As you said, you see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَحْبَبَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. So the most important thing.
What does that mean?
It means the closest of you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the most loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of you, is the one that has most taqwa. Taqwa is staying away from what is not permissible, what is haram, and acting on what is compulsory. And that is taqwa. So you do what is wajib and compulsory, and you stay away from what is haram and what is not permissible. But to have children be pious, be religious, have taqwa, you need to have the role models as the parents to be that first. So some parents, for example, want their children to stay away from watching TV. Themselves, every night they spend 2-3 hours watching TV. How can you, as a role model, watch TV for 3 hours and expect your children to say, no, what TV is bad? The child automatically sees a hypocrisy and picks it up. That, okay, my father or my mother is telling me not to watch TV, yet they're doing it themselves. They're not saying they're saying it's no good, but they're doing it themselves. They will not listen to you. In the Rawayat of Ahl Bayt al-Muslim, there's a Rawayat in Munir al-Murid, which I think you guys have seen in the Hawza al-Murid. It says that if a person gives a maw'adha or gives a advice to someone and doesn't act upon that himself or herself, it's as if it's a drop of water on glass. It slides off on their hearts.
That sounds excellent.
The Rawaya says that it's like a drop of water on the glass, that it just slides off their hearts. It doesn't penetrate the heart of the person listening. So when the person who is giving the advice or lecturing or giving the speech, be it the lecturer or being the parent, because we're talking about parents now, I'm talking about parents. If they're not acting themselves, if they're not religious themselves, they don't have taqwa themselves, then it's very difficult for them to expect their children to act upon what they don't act upon themselves. If they don't wake up for Salatul Subh themselves, how would they expect the children to wake up for morning prayer? A nice story, if you like, from one of the ulama, may Allah bless his soul. He passed away now. He was a mujtahid and a speaker, a lecturer. He said in the old days in Najaf, what the ulama used to do, and this is a good advice for all of us, a little while before Fajr, before the adhan of Subh, the morning call to prayer, just before it, they used to wake up their children, push out all the toys, and let the children play.
SubhanAllah.
And that time the children would learn to wake up automatically, because 1 week, 2 weeks, automatically your body clock changes, so you wake up at the time. So they wake up at the time of Salat al-Layl, not without praying. They would come. They'll wake up to play. So it would be a very happy experience and memory for them. That this is a happy time. It's toys. It's fun. Everyone's awake. Everyone's playing. But because that hour was a wake up time for them, when they realized what Salat al-Layl and night prayer is and Fajr prayer is, they would automatically be doing it because it's very easy for them. because their body clock was used to waking up. Also, it wasn't by punishment, it wasn't by force, it wasn't by being hit to say you wake up for prayer. It was done through smiling, through laughter and fun. Because children want to have fun. So the toys will be put out for them to have fun. At that particular time, their body clock got used to it, and their minds were set to having fun at this time. So therefore, prayer became something part of their lives. It wasn't difficult, and it was something that had good memory with it. You can never push people into Islam with force or violence. It has to be through logic and through good akhlaq and good smiles, just like the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam.
That's a really amazing way of getting kids to wake up and instill in them that maybe the time or just their body clock. Do you have anything like that from the Imams or from the Prophet, anything like that they used to do with their children?
If you see the rawat with regards to the 3 times 7, first 7 years, the second 7 years, and the last 7 years, you will see that it says the first 7 years, don't do anything to them, in a sense of don't try and force them into anything. Because children, the first 7 years, they all it requires your love and your attention and your time. Now, the second 7 years is the most important, between age of 7 to 14. And that's where a lot of people miss the gap that they need to get. They start at 14, it's too late.
So what should they start doing from the age of 7?
From the age of 7, you start being their friend. So by the way, you know what? Prayer has these consequences. By the way, we pray because of this reason. Automatically at 7 they have curiosity anyway, they'll ask you. But if they see you doing things, and by the way, if you say that, for example, by praying you will have good akhlaq, and you pray you don't have good akhlaq, again it will be that hypocritical thing. They'll see the hypocrisy and they'll see the contradiction, and they'll put it back. So you have to act what you say rather than just say it and hope for the best. So you have to change your actions so that it fits your words, they go together, so the child can hear and see it and believe it. Otherwise, if the child hears something and sees something contradictory, then they're not going to believe it. So from the 7 years of age until the 14 years of age is the time to be friendly to the child and tell them what to do and what not to do. Tell them this is right, this is wrong. This is permissible, this is not permissible. Don't do this, do this. Contradictory to what people do now. From 7 to 14, they don't tell the child anything.
I remember seeing a similar tradition that in the first 7 years, you treat your son or your daughter, your child, like a king. I don't know if you've seen that. And someone was saying that doesn't mean you give them everything like you would a king. But what it was is that when you're with a king, you're very careful about how you act. You're very careful about what you say. So same with your children, you also need to be very careful about your behavior, your actions, so that any bad influence isn't coming from home.
Yeah. And you see, if you respect someone, they'll respect you in return. It's no different to your children. You cannot disrespect your child and expect them to respect you in return. Now,
that's very true.
One of the most heart-wrenching experiences were to do with Ali Akbar that we're talking about now. With regards to this point that just came to my mind now, is some of the narrators say that when Imam Hussein alayhi salam saw the body of his son, now what happened until he got to the body is tragic itself. But when he got to the body of Ali al-Akbar salamullah alayh, they say that he asked, obviously when a son sees a father, he gets up in respect.
Yeah.
So you're seeing your father, why aren't you getting up? To try whatever you could to get the life into his son. So when you respect the child will respect you back in return. The child will learn to respect their parents if they see respect in the household. Also, again, the culture that they live in is very important. If you put them constantly in a very Western culture and not allow them to have access to the Islamic culture, then they'll pick up those values of a Western culture and leave to the side those true values and true traditions that need to be picked up at a young, early age.
If we're living in the West, like a lot of us are, and there's a lot of Western influences like television, there's the schools that we go to, how would a parent help instill the Islamic culture influences when every day they're going to school, they have and television and all these kind of influences? Most of the day we're influenced by the people around us who are majority non-Muslim. So what can we do as a community or as parents or as individuals to help our youth to grow up and be on the right path?
First of all, there are Islamic mediums available in media channels like this one that you're watching right now. So at the end of the day, try and get them to be involved in such projects. Also projects to do with Muharram and Safar, basically. Whether it be that they have a small group, they make a small group and they hold majalis. Any household, regardless of how big or how small or wherever it may be, as long as there is someone there that loves Imam Hussein alayhi salam, have a majlis and you will see the barakat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You will see the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open down on you. There is no reason why even a small house cannot have a majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam with a small number of people. As small as it may be, 2 people, 3 people, doesn't matter. Even if you're on your own, you can put black on the walls and recite a majlis for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The point is to have that link to this ship that will take you and rescue you. That's the most important thing. Now, for the children in the West, it's crucial that you give them the opportunity to do this, whether it be with their friends, so something which they enjoy at the same time gives them that religious sense of ability and the sense of belonging to a religious group. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam is the best of ways to do that for the youth. We see that in our countries that this occurs all the time. Many of the youth belong to different groups that have majalis and so forth and do various activities when it comes to Muharram and Safar and throughout the year. But most importantly, Muharram and Safar. Also, you can bring them to ziyarat, as we said. Take them to Umrah, take them to Hajj. The ziyarat to Imam alayhi salam has a blessing in itself.
Does it have to be, some people can't afford to come for ziyarah, they can't, they have a big family, it'd be very difficult, maybe they have work. What about a ziyarah from far away, from their houses? Is it equally...
Yeah, they could, see, first of all, when someone says that I cannot do ziyarah, let's just examine them one by one.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to come to ziyarah, compared to all the expenses that people have? I met a gentleman from Afghanistan about 2 or 3 years ago in Najaf. It's a long story, I'll cut it down very briefly. He had sold the house that they were living in, his wife were living in, to pay for the cost of the ziyarat.
SubhanAllah.
Because he saw that the ziyarat is much more important than the house. He can go back and rent a house, but he might die and not come to the ziyarat of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now the point is how strongly our iman and faith are. That truly if you take a step from Muhammad Hussein will take 10 steps towards you, and money and rizq is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anyway. So I encourage everyone to go and do what they need to do to come to ziyarat. That's one. Secondly, put priorities into perspective. Many people go to different holidays, yet they won't come to ziyarat. Or when they come to ziyarat, they have an expenditure because they go to 5-star hotels. Bring it down. In Hajj, the people that bring their children every year, I see it. Every year we see in Hajj. The people that have their children with them and the entire family are the poorest of the poor. Because rich people say, you know what, our children might get sick. It's difficult. How do we manage them? And it's a'mal and so forth. And so they miss out.
So our expectations
it's a complete other way around. You would have thought that it'd be the rich people that bring their children because they can afford it. But it's actually the poor people that bring their children. So it's a lot to do with your belief and your faith rather than your financial ability. If you can't afford it, have majalis for Muhammad. Any place that has a majalis for Muhammad has the same thawab as the dome of Muhammad, and the du'as are accepted in there, inshallah. You can do ghusl ziyarah, you do ghusl in the intention of ziyarat Muhammad and take the ziyarat and recite the ziyarat towards Qibla, and that will be from the west, that will be towards Karbala as well, approximately. And they can do Ziyarat to Hussein salam from afar. There's a Ziyarat called Ziyarat Hussein salam in Ba'id. They can do that as well. Now, when they do that, automatically the children see, the children hear, they will get affected, and they will learn from the parents. So there are many ways that parents can get their children to leave the westernization and that culture and move more towards a religious way of life. And it's a much more peaceful way of life, and it's a way of life that has a lot less stress than other people, because when you live a life of purely materialistic means, then you're always chasing something that never exists, because the materialistic want is infinite, it's never ending. You'll never be able to fulfill your needs because it's a never ending need. Whereas with a religious high, if you like, that you're chasing, a particular movement that you're going towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every time that you do something good or you become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're taking a step literally closer, and you feel it, and you see the barakat and the blessings in your life, and less dependent you are on materialistic things. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to you, you take it and you thank Allah. If He takes it away from you, you still take it and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't become upset for becoming poor or rich. Where you see materialistic people, many commit suicide when they become bankrupt. Why do they commit suicide? Because their entire mentality is materialistic. They think if they don't have money, they have nothing. Hence they commit suicide. Whereas a mu'min, if he has money, he says Alhamdulillah, now my responsibility is gone greater. If money is taken away from him, he says Alhamdulillah, less responsibility. Either way, it doesn't affect him. Whereas a person who doesn't have iman or faith is affected much more greatly.
This, if we go back to the personality of Ali Akbar, just to maybe we could remember the final moments in the land of Karbala. If we could maybe mention the situation or how it was just before he went out, and from what I know, he was the first of the family of the Imam to go out. So how was that like? What was the situation like in the camp? What was the feeling amongst everyone?
I would do, inshallah. Before I do that, there's names that have not been read out, so
okay.
I'll read them inshallah. Suhail, Sayyida Tahira Batul, Sayyida Fadil Abbas, Sayyida Fadil Abbas, Sayyid Altaf Hussein Bukhari, Sayyida Shahida Altaf, some of them from yesterday, from today, Muhammad Rafiq Somal, Sara Datu Sajid Somal, Shireen Somal, Rahat Batul Shah, Farah Ali Shah, Sayyida Layla Bint Fatima, Agha Abbas, Sayyid Asghar Ali Shah, Sayyid Musa Ali Shah, Sayyid Hassan Ali Shah, Sayyid Ismail Batul, Sayyid Saka Batul, Sayyid Koko Batul, Sayyid Wasi Raza, Sayyid Mahdi Raza, Sayyid Hadi Raza, Hamza Shah, Sayyid Sulaiman Shah, Sayyid Amman Shah, Sayyid Ibrahim Shah, Sayyid Ja'far Shah, Sayyid Abu Talib Kazmi, Sayyid Zulfaqar Ali Shah, Sayyid Zuhair Shah, Sayyid Bint Zahra, Sayyid Amina Batul, Sayyid Tahniyat Zahra, Sayyid Zurriyat Zahra, Sayyid Nabahat Batul. Also, just now we have Mrs. Hussein and Mrs. Hussein's family, and we'll convey the salams, inshallah.
May Allah accept all your ziyarah, and inshallah you'll be able to come to the Holy Land soon, inshallah.
Now, the tragedy of Ali al-Akbar, Salamullah alayh, has many attributes and many ways to look at it. We will be discussing this with Maulana Anwar Najafi in about 5 minutes or so, and going into depth into the Masa'ib and reciting the Masa'ib of Ali al-Akbar, inshallah. But just before we do that, one point that, or a couple of points that I want to discuss, is that again, what is taken away from the tragedy of Karbala by people looking at it, regardless of be it Shia, Sunni, or non-Muslims, Jews, Christians, whatever, or people that are atheists, just the reality of what occurred and the sacrifice that people made. See, no one would make such a sacrifice as the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam made on Ashura unless they had 100% conviction. Conviction can take different levels. Hence the conviction of the Ma'sumeen alayhim salam is the highest of conviction. It's 100% conviction. If you have 100% conviction, then everything becomes very easy. The reason we don't have, we have all these issues, we have these problems that we have, is because of not having conviction, not being sure 100%. Many stories throughout the years show this to us, that it's our lack of conviction, not anything that is lacking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But what is missing is the lack of conviction that we have. It's a famous story. I'll try and do it, we only got a couple of minutes left, just to make this point about conviction and the difference between our conviction and the Ma'sumeen. There's a very well narrated story about the ruler of Bahrain hundreds of years ago, who was a Shia. His deputy was a Sunni. Now the deputy wanted to change the leader or the king, and therefore brought a pomegranate. In the pomegranate, all around it, had written the Khulafa and said, these are Khulafa Allah bil Haq, and was given to the king. The deputy said, look, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This pomegranate grown naturally, and it says on it that the Khulafa are these. Prove otherwise. The king asked the ulama of the Shia to come and answer it. No one could answer it. I'm making it as concise as possible. One of the ulama that was the head said, you know what, I will give us 3 days and we'll do it. They took 3 days of praying and begging Imam Zaman to help them. On the 3rd day, on the last day, all the best of the ulama, the most pious people have prayed. A man came to him on a horse and said, it's very simple. 2 clays have been put around the pomegranate when it was a baby. As it grew, the writing on the clays were engraved on it. Therefore, you can go onto the person's house. In this place, you will see the clays there. Also, if you break it, and then inside there's no fruit because there's no oxygen getting to it. This will disprove that. My point isn't this. My point is this: the person, the alim, asked Imam Zaman, or the person from Imam Zaman, why is it that you took 3 days to come back? Why is it took 3 days that we've been mourning, we've been asking, we've been praying? The reply was this: it is your not having conviction that you asked for 3 days. Had you asked for that moment that you would answer, I would have come and given you the answer.
Ya Allah.
So it's our conviction that we don't see the Imam. It's our sins that we don't see the Imam. It's us, not the Ahlul Bayt. So what we should take is the conviction of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. We'll go on a break inshallah, and we'll come back and speak about Ali Akbar and his martyrdom inshallah. After the break we'll carry on inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.